Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jaya Kula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
Recently, I did some work for a carpenter, and it's the first time in a long time I've had to perform in front of another person. So I spent a week working for this guy, and it was probably the most uncomfortable week I've had in a really long time. But also it was kind of a gift because I'm starting to look at my own realm fixation with Titan in a whole other way. And just thinking about how useful in that context it is to be out in the world and how much that helps me reflect on my practice and try and grow in that way.
Out rather than in
Yeah.
provides us with more opportunities to have things activated and to see where we have capacity and where we have lack thereof, being a practitioner, with all of the ways we get rubbed the wrong way and get into situations that are not routinized and not familiar. That can be really helpful for us and also difficult. We don't just surprise ourselves with how uncomfortable we feel in situations that we're not as in control of, but we also can surprise ourselves with how much we have to give or how much capacity we have that we hadn't realized that we had. So it could go either way, really, right? But that's a good point. Being in the world is a field of sadhana, and it helps us to be in community with other people, and it helps us to be at a job, and it helps us to be just out and about, and we get to see where we're really at when we're interacting with other people and in different situations. When we create cocoons for ourselves, then we don't get as many opportunities to see what's really going on for us. And we also don't get as many opportunities to give, obviously.
There's this Zen teaching that's the oneness of giver, receiver, and gift. I just thought of it when you've been talking.
This very central teaching that the self is the giver, the self is the gift, and the self is the one given to. So there's an identity of that. Basically, those are the three poles of dualistic experience. And it's saying that the person who's the subject doing the act and the thing acted upon are all the same self, or all those roles are all being played by the same self, and that the self, this alive aware reality, is producing dualistic experiences, producing this experience of one and another, of the multiplicity. But it's interesting that this teaching is always given not just as this sort of clinical, how we produce this experience of duality, but it's always given in the context of yajna, which means ritual, some sort of ritual offering. The Bhagavad Gita is where this teaching is most famously given, where Lord Krishna is saying that the person making the offerings into the offering fire are the self, and the offerings are the self, and the fire is the self, the one being offered to. And then goes on to say that everything is yajna. Yajna means fire ceremony. He's saying everything is a fire ceremony. In dualistic life, everything is being offered from the self to the self and being subsumed by the self. My experience of the natural state is that it has this quality, this devotional quality, this quality of endless giving. This teaching, the way that it's given, really encapsulates that, right? It's always about the offering of self to self in a ritual sense and in a devotional sense, so that we can have the understanding, at least intellectually at first, that everything that's happening is happening with a devotional quality. Eventually we'll discover that for ourselves directly through our own senses.
Can you talk about how giving is part of devotion?
Well, devotion is outwardly focused. How could it be any other way, right? And devotion is a word that includes a lot of other things, such as if we're being devoted to something, we're not just standing still, we're tending to that thing. So when we're being devotional, there's a sense of giving. Even if it's something quiet, it's expressive. Devotion is expressive, I think, is the crux of it. It causes us to want to express something. We have a desire to express devotion when we feel devotion. And that's a form of giving, probably the essence of giving.
Can you talk about the receiving part of that? I mean, I feel like there's so many teachings that are on the giving devotional side, but not on receiving devotionally.
Mm-hmm. People's capacity to receive acts of devotion directed at them is very varied. And of course, the most beautiful thing is when that can be understood and received in a very graceful and smooth way, but that doesn't always happen. There's ways in which lots of things can interrupt expressions of devotion so that they're not received as you would wish, or people are suspicious of you, or they just don't feel it. It's like pouring water on someone with a upside down pot on their head. But you just keep doing it anyway, right? You just keep being yourself. If you feel devotional, you just keep doing it. And there's nothing really more to say about that. Sometimes we're able to discern whether someone's going to receive what we have to give. And if we discern that there's not a possibility of giving in a situation, then that probably isn't the situation for us. If I'm in a situation where people don't want what I have to give, I don't actually feel I have anything to do. So I'll tend to just back off. But sometimes people are initially like, yeah, but then they soften up and they feel the sincerity of it, and it's really beautiful. So there's a lot of different circumstances about receiving. And I think one of the things that impacts that is this isn't a very devotional culture. And so expressing devotion is often seems a little weird, but we should do it anyway, because giving ourselves an opportunity to give is going to really help us, right? And it helps other people when we let other people give to us. So sometimes people in this culture have this feeling like we shouldn't get help. We should be very independent. And so they're reluctant to be given to. But actually, letting yourself be given to is also a form of generosity, because it's really beautiful for someone giving to you if they feel what they want to give is received and appreciated. So it's not always a kind thing to refuse what someone has to give, unless it's just entirely manipulative and inappropriate. I mean, there's so many different permutations. You just have to do your best feeling them out. Unfortunately for us, because we're basically all bumblers, we have to actually try to address the real situation that we're in and try to be sensitive and decide, is there an opening here for me or is there not? Sometimes when somebody's in a lot of pain, sometimes, a kind gesture or an understanding word or just a touch on the arm or something can really make a big difference. Someone can just melt when you even offer a small gesture of care and kindness. In other circumstances, you offer a small gesture of care and kindness and they bite you. It really depends on them, not on you. A lot of times when we're trying to be helpful to somebody, we think erroneously that if we just figured out the right thing to do, we could turn the key and the situation would be better. But it's not up to us. Sometimes we can do exactly the right thing. This is described in Hindu teaching stories as shooting an arrow into a very precise point. But how often can we do that? A lot of times we just miss, or that's not even what's needed. They don't need an arrow. They need something else. So we can do our best and try to discern in the moment what is called for, but just be prepared to fail, because oftentimes whatever is going on is way outside of our lane, way outside of what we have any business trying to fix, But I do think that we have impulses to be generous, to be devotional, and we don't follow them because it's just a little weird in this culture. but we should follow them more.
Sometimes I run into somebody who hasn't run across our tradition and they ask, what sort of meditation do you do? And I like scratch the surface of listening, abiding, and then just like stop there pretty much saying that, most of the practices are integrative and not the usual meditation. But then there's this voice in me that comes later, like, am I crossing a boundary there? Like I'm a student, not a teacher in that tradition. Should I be like observing a more modest approach where I'm not like mouthing teachings?
Are you mouthing teachings? It doesn't sound like it.
Okay. I mean,
Are most of our practices integrated? Don't I make you sit at least an hour a day?
yeah. I just wanted to make sure that, it was a sane approach in sharing.
When people ask me, what do you teach? I just say meditation. Usually that's the end of the conversation. But if they ask me what kind of meditation, which has never happened, I might say, oh, it's the kind of meditation where your eyes are open. And then they're like, okay, no. I don't want to hear any more about it. Sounds horrible. And this is actually a hallmark of all direct realization traditions. This is not specific to Trika. So in every direct realization tradition, there are open-eyed meditations that are the mainstay. Because why?
So many answers to that question.
Okay, good. Give one.
Because Lord Shiva's attention is directed at everything all at once. So we don't shut down to
You
anything.
don't shut down. Yep.
Because we're trying to be awake.
We're trying to be awake. Yep.
Because we have to live in the world.
You know it. Yes. Because we're being in the world with all of our senses open. So one of the ways that the whole practice is described in Dzogchen is as opening the gates of our senses. And of course, with our eyes open, that is one of the gates of our senses. Now, that being said, of course, I'm about to now shoot myself down, because whenever we make a pronouncement like that in this tradition, there's always at the end of the road a time when none of this applies whatsoever, and it doesn't matter whether your eyes are open or closed. Which is one of the things I love about this tradition, and also one of the things I love about Ma, because she never shied away from giving these very esoteric teachings in front of a bunch of farmers or something, whoever she was talking to. So she always included these very big teachings. I remember there was this one teaching where there was somebody who came to the teaching who lived in a very rural situation without electricity in a very hot climate, and this person didn't know what ice was. Somebody else in the audience was making fun of them, and Ma sort of took this person to task for making fun of this person for not knowing what ice was. But in the course of explaining very sweetly what ice was, she then gave this huge teaching about the nature of reality. So I love that she does that, and also never shies away from the end point, which is everything is needed at the level that it's needed, but then at the end it's not needed.
I'm sure you've given me advice about this 1,000 times by now, but how can I hear an invitation that you're making of turning outward, and what can I do to defamiliarize this really strong pattern of looking at things through this lens of lack, or this feeling of I'm not going to get to do everything I want to do in my life? How can I move on from that feeling?
In the best possible circumstance, we figure out or already know or somehow stumble upon what our life is really about. For instance, I know that my life is about giving these teachings in the myriad ways that I do. And so I'm going to make decisions about how to spend my limited time based on that understanding. And that means I'm not going to do certain things. For instance, as much as I am involved in trying to express something about and do something about the genocide in Gaza, I'm not going to be in a situation where my life is in danger. I've made that decision multiple times, even though I wanted to be able to do that. I want to be able to be in the March to Gaza, but I was clear about what the main purpose of my life is, and that I do have limited time, and there's certain risks that I can't take with my life and time if I want to do what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think that's a really clarifying thing if you can get a sense of what actually your life is about. And it might not be just one thing. I mean, for me, it's just one thing, but that doesn't mean that it's only one thing for somebody else. But I do think that we each have sort of main expressions that we came here to explore and offer. And we should organize our life around those things and have those be guides to what we decide to do, and especially what we decide to tie up our energy in. So certain things might seem fairly innocuous, but if they're going to tie up a lot of energy, then they're going to take away from the main thing that we're supposed to be doing, or the main things that we're supposed to be doing. So that's one way to make those kind of decisions and not feel bad about them. And again, it's not like about what I want to do and what I don't want to do, because I want to do lots of things that I'm not doing. Believe me. But I do feel like, especially related to the teachings, that I would be out of integrity if I didn't do everything to preserve my ability to give teachings. So you could think about it that way. What really organizes your life? What is your deepest things that you have come to offer or learn, not necessarily offer, but learn or do. And then you can have a kind of peace around making decisions to say no about certain things, I find. Okay. Satsang with Shambhavi is produced by Jaya Kula, a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. If you enjoyed listening, please help us keep this podcast and many other teachings open to all by making a monthly or one-time donation. Visit jayakula.org to make a donation and explore more of our offerings.